In the early years of the Cold War, intelligence agencies were facing a terrifying possibility. What if the human mind could be broken without leaving a trace? What if a prisoner could be forced to reveal secrets without even realizing it? Inside hidden rooms, far from public view, scientists and intelligence officers began asking dangerous questions. How much pressure could the human mind withstand? At what point would resistance collapse? And more importantly, could interrogation be turned into a science? Because during the Cold War, the CIA wasn't just trying to gather information. They were trying to understand the limits of the human mind itself. And what they discovered was far more complicated than they expected. By the 1950s, the Cold War had reshaped global power. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a silent conflict, a war of intelligence, a war of secrets. But one fear stood above all others: brainwashing. During the Korean War, American prisoners returned home under strange circumstances. Some behaved differently. Others appeared to support enemy ideologies. To intelligence officials, this raised a disturbing question. Had the enemy discovered a way to control the human mind? Reports suggested that communist interrogators were using new psychological techniques that relied not on physical violence, but on mental pressure, isolation, fear, confusion. The idea was deeply unsettling, because if true, it meant that loyalty itself could be manipulated. And if that was possible, then no secret was truly safe. In response, American intelligence agencies began studying interrogation more seriously than ever before. They collected reports, analyzed case studies, examined how prisoners reacted under extreme conditions. And slowly, a new perspective began to emerge. Interrogation was not just about force, it was about psychology. But understanding that was only the beginning, because once they started asking how interrogation worked, they couldn't stop asking how to improve it. The CIA wanted to go beyond traditional methods. They wanted control, not through violence, but through understanding. Researchers began studying how stress affected decision-making, how fear altered perception, and how isolation could break down mental defenses. Some experiments focused on sensory deprivation. Subjects were placed in environments with almost no stimulation, no sound, no light, no human contact. Over time, something strange began to happen. Without external input, the mind began to turn inward. Thoughts became distorted, perception shifted, reality itself became unstable. Other experiments explored sleep deprivation. Subjects were kept awake for extended periods. Hours turned into days. As exhaustion increased, resistance decreased. Concentration faded, judgment weakened, and in some cases, subjects became more compliant. But not always, because the human mind didn't respond consistently. What worked on one person failed on another, and that unpredictability made the research far more complicated than expected. Still, the CIA continued pushing forward, because even partial success could be enough to extract information, enough to influence behavior, enough to gain an advantage. But psychological pressure alone wasn't enough, and soon, researchers began looking for something more powerful. By the early 1950s, scientists began exploring chemical methods of interrogation, substances that could alter perception, affect memory, or weaken resistance. Among them, one compound stood out: LSD. At the time, it was poorly understood, but early experiments revealed something unusual. Under its influence, subjects often experienced confusion, emotional vulnerability, distorted perception of reality. To researchers, this presented an opportunity. If a subject's sense of reality could be disrupted, perhaps their defenses could be lowered. Perhaps they could be made more suggestible, more open, more likely to talk. The CIA began testing these ideas in controlled environments. Some subjects were aware, others were not. And in certain cases, the drug was administered without consent. Researchers observed reactions carefully, looking for patterns, looking for consistency, looking for control. But once again, the results were unpredictable. Some subjects became cooperative, others became paranoid. Some withdrew completely, others reacted in ways that made interrogation impossible. The human mind proved far more complex than expected, and yet the experiments continued because even in failure, there was still something to learn. After years of experimentation, one truth became impossible to ignore. The human mind could not be controlled as easily as intelligence agencies had hoped. There was no simple method, no reliable formula, no guaranteed outcome. But that didn't mean the research had failed, because the objective began to shift from control to influence. Instead of trying to dominate the mind completely, researchers focused on weakening it, creating moments of vulnerability, moments where resistance dropped, where confusion increased, where suggestion became more effective. This subtle shift changed everything. Interrogation was no longer about forcing information out. It was about creating the conditions where information might emerge, where a subject might speak, not because they were forced to, but because they no longer knew how to resist. This approach was far more difficult to measure, far less predictable, but in some cases it worked. And that was enough. Enough to justify further research. Enough to expand the program. Because by the mid-1950s, the CIA had already begun developing something much larger, something more secret, something more controversial. In the years that followed, the CIA's interrogation research would evolve into one of the most infamous programs in history, MKUltra, a program that expanded these experiments far beyond controlled environments, into universities, hospitals, and even ordinary locations. But MKUltra was not the end of the story, because some of the most disturbing operations didn't happen in laboratories at all. They happened in hidden apartments, under surveillance, on people who had no idea they were being watched. Which raises a disturbing question. If the CIA couldn't fully control the human mind, how far were they willing to go to try?